Hi, I'm Mark Treble. Welcome to the Photographer Academy, and today I'm joined by Richard West from Datacolor, and we're going to be just doing a quick overview of the different Datacolor products, isn't it really? Specifically, monitor calibration, looking at products that we can actually shoot and kind of color calibrate, so kind of in Lightroom and kind of camera raw and so on with it, looking at how we can control the contrast of an image, exposure all the way through, as well as obviously kind of if we're going to print ourselves, actually going to go through. You kind of cover all that with your Datacolor products.
The whole aspect, Mark, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Straight from capture, basically, so we've got devices here, like the lens cal, actually nothing to do with color calibration, but just making sure you've got that autofocus, so right from the word go, all right, let's focus things correctly. So
that's designed specifically to check if the lens is focusing right, yeah?
Exactly right, yeah, and you should use that with every lens and camera combination, basically, so you get it right. You know, every one of those lenses is absolutely spot on as far as calibration is concerned.
I've heard so many photographers actually say, I'm not sure if my lens is out. You know, it's that kind of doubt, and once you get a doubt in your head, I actually know friends of mine who sell their lenses, or even change their bodies, not physical bodies, but camera bodies, because they're so obsessed that something is wrong with this. So it's great to actually see a simple tool that's actually allow us.
It's interesting actually, because we did a survey at the last Photokina, a big European photo show, and we offered the service for people to come along and try their cameras that they have with them for free. And they popped along, and we had about, I think it was somewhere around 1,500 people took us up on the opportunity. And about 50% of those, in fact over 50% I think it was, were out of focus, basically. And it is something that some people know, and that tends to be when it's really out of focus, as opposed to, okay, there's actually a lot of us that are using camera combinations that you don't really appreciate it until you try this and you suddenly realise, oh, that's why when I've been focusing, I'm sure I'm spot on, it doesn't work. It's just a little bit out, basically.
Well, because yesterday I was shooting food, and I'm working between 2.8 and f4, and boy, if you miss the right spot, you know, it's kind of trouble. Okay, so that kind of talks about the lens calibration and everything else with it.
Okay, yeah, and then we've got tools, as you mentioned, for setting white points. So this is an equivalent of a grey card here, but slightly more pocketable and portable. That's the Spider Cube. So intention there is to give you something to aim for, just to know your white point, your grey levels, and your contrast, basically, in your photo range.
And because it's three-dimensional, of course, it allows you to kind of view it in a slightly different way than a flat grey card, isn't it?
Exactly right. Yeah.
So many photographers actually use a flat grey card in the wrong way. They point it in the wrong direction and everything else, and that slight little change will actually drastically change it.
Precisely.
Plus you've also got a white point and a true black point actually in the whole, isn't it?
That's right, yeah, just 100% black basis, so black catch light if you like, ironically, and a white catch light on the ball here, so that's a scintillation ball.
It's not to look pretty, that ball, is it? It does have a reason.
It is there for a reason, absolutely, yeah, indeed, yeah. So if you've got any out of gamut, both there or in the hole is where that should be appearing on your images, basically. So if that's the only place that's out of gamut, both shadow and highlight, you know you've got the right contrast level, basically. So,
now, the Spider Checker has become pretty much industry standard for a photographer, whether they're a wedding photographer, a portrait photographer, commercial photography, fashion. This is kind of being dropped into the images. And can you just actually explain how that kind of works for those who've never used the likes of the Checker before?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've obviously folded it there in order to make it stand up on its own, but it can be tripod mounted or just held, basically, but it should be flat on. You're going to shoot that, and compared to here where you've got essentially just your grey levels that you can set, this gives you 48 plus colours and white levels that you know exactly what they are, and that allows you to linearize or control your photo shoot, so you know, okay, each of those colours, meaning that, okay, if I'm in a mixed colour environment, mixed lighting environment, then I can make sure I can balance out and linearize and control the quality of my image such that, okay, if I've got maybe your food under sodium lighting compared to, under tungsten lighting compared to, and daylight, the food looks exactly the same all the way through. It doesn't look sort of pasty and grey in one shot, in one lighting condition, and perhaps too bleached out in another, because you've got this as a target you can shoot, and then you can linearize across the whole of the different lighting conditions to make sure it looks exactly the same. So the colours are the same colours, irrespective of that lighting condition.
I mean, that's a sedge of me, especially. I don't do a lot of food photography when I'm photographing just the daylight with it, but if I'm photographing at the beginning of the day and I photograph it towards the end of the day, completely different colour cast across the whole thing with it, you know. But even when I'm using flash to actually kind of give me full illumination, I still want to make sure it's perfect colour.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, then of course we go to the Spider, which is probably the product that you became most famous for, is it? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the product a lot of people know, basically. It's sort of become synonymous with color calibration, basically. And nowadays, on the fourth iteration of the Spider, it's given us improvements in technology and capabilities all the way through. So therefore, we're and nowadays able to do things like color management of tablets and phones with it as well. So we're extending out that capability each time in just how good the optics and the filters in there are for controlling that color environment.
And the whole point of calibration of the screen really is to make sure what you see on screen is what you're going to get back from your lab or whatever it would be, isn't it? It's building those profiles of the screen to make sure it can see the colours you think it's seeing.
Exactly.
Because I see so many photographers twisting little kind of sliders here and sliders there, and they're adjusting things. But in fact, if their monitor's out, by the time they get the image back, then it's basically wrong anyway, isn't it?
A lot of people say that they can do it themselves. They've got great eyes, and personally, I've got two eyes that see colours differently. My right eye sees things a little bit redder than my left eye, so and that's not uncommon. You really should be using a controllable device or something that's going to give you that control, basically. So therefore, the Spider's perfect for that. It is the most important part of the color calibration and control environment. Make sure that screen is correct, and then absolutely you can retouch, you can do stuff there, and you've got it in that controlled environment that if you send it to the internet, send it off to a website, put it into an app, put it into a printed magazine or into an album, great. As long as that end of things is calibrated as well, then it's going to come out correct. You know that what you do, if you're warming something up, it's going to look warm.
Pretty much all the pro labs and everything else are all calibrated. They've got to have consistency of colour running throughout and things.
Yeah,
really.
they certainly should be.
They should be. Well, most of the ones I deal with, I know are kind of thing with it. There's three types of Spider at present, isn't there? You've got the Express, which is the kind of the more consumer and entry level.
Yep.
Then you've got the Pro, which is more what I use actually for my kind of screen and everything else with it. And then you've got the Elite.
Yeah, that's
What's the difference in the three, really?
So Express, as you say, if you're getting into this, it's a high-end quality device still, but we've priced it accordingly. That make it affordable for people, and not that the others aren't actually saying that, but basically it cuts down some of the functionalities. So therefore, you haven't got an ambient light sensor for your room conditions, which if what you're doing is trying to get your holiday snaps, etc., looking the same when they come out on print, then that's a good thing. But the Pro obviously takes it up from that. It allows you to have that ambient sensing for room lighting. And also, the Express will only do one display on a computer. So if you've got a laptop, it'll calibrate that display there. You can't, for instance, plug in external displays, whereas with the Pro and the Elite, which essentially are the same physical unit, then they'll do multiple displays on a single computer. But also the Pro and the Elite have extra abilities to basically the control software-wise gives you more functionality, which if you're into it like yourself, then obviously you'll get more out of your control there. The Elite itself fundamentally is aimed at real high-end control. You'd use that perhaps more in a graphic design studio, for instance, as well, so where you want to balance multiple machines and get them exactly in alignment again. But also has the advantage of being able to do multi-point sensing. So if I've got a screen, and unfortunately the joys of these thin screens, TFTs, LEDs, etc., nowadays, they can have hotspots. So you can have one area that's sort of brighter or more contrasty than another area on the same screen. Didn't used to have that so much in the CRT days. But the multi-point sensing that you get with the Elite allows you to control that basically and calibrate for that as well. So just the ultimate in controls.
And if you're working in a studio with multiple monitors and things, really, so you've got different workstations, you're only basically buying one Spider to go across the whole of them, or do you need to buy one for each? Or?
No, you can put it onto multiple machines. So yeah, there's no problem from that point of view as long as
it was a leading question, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose we'd probably like you to buy one for each machine, but yes.
In fact, I still do a little bit of consultancy with some major brand studios, and they'll perhaps have 5 or 6 video and stills editors within that room, and they need to actually be consistent across them, specifically in the stills, actually going back and forth from the lab and things, really. Speaking about stills photography, print calibration is key as well. You do a product for that, which is this little baby here, isn't it?
That's right.
What's that one called?
That's the Spider print.
Okay. I don't use this, but I'm well familiar in the kind of calibration to do with kind of print coming out and so on with it. Do you want to just talk us through it? And kind of I'll kind of give you my two pence at the end of things really. What's this design around? Because it looks a bit basic in how it kind of feels and kind of how it's all going to work and so on with it. Tell us how it kind of all comes together.
So effectively, yeah, I mean, this is, in some respects, the most nuanced part of the workflow. So this is giving you the opportunity to print out on different types of stock. So whether it's different inks or different papers or just different printers, you can print out how a selection of different color charts, basically, but you can print these out and the device reads those. It's as opposed to the Spider on screen, which is a transmissive reading device. This is a reflective color reading device, i.e. it's got a light source in here, calibrated light source, and it's bouncing that back off of paper, basically, and reading it, as opposed to that's just picking up on the light that's coming out of things, so vis-a-vis screens, tablets, phones, etc., and projectors even. So what we're doing here, though, is, I mean, Datacolor is fundamentally a company that is purely focused around color management. That's the mainstay of what the company does, not just in the photographic and imaging world, but also in the manufacturing world as well. Yep. So it's 100% the core element of the business. And so therefore we do a whole range of different products that are considerably more expensive than this, that have nice moving flat beds, and there's capabilities to really automate the process. What we're doing here is we're giving you a high quality device to read the color in your print outputs and produce, as you say, those profiles that essentially are the fingerprints or the how my printer prints. But basically this is doing it more affordably because you're becoming the machine, because you essentially use the guide here, pop it onto the printouts, put your, it's USB based, so we haven't got it plugged in at the moment, obviously, at the moment, but put that into the guide, press the button and roll it across yourself and just move down. But the software takes you through it, same with all the other
step by
devices.
step, isn't it?
It's very simple to use software, so it makes it a very easy to do process.
And this builds you a profile not only to do with the printer, but the ink that you've got, and the paper is going to print on, isn't it? So if I'm going from, say, a kind of an art-based paper to a more of a photographic one, it's a different profile for each of those, and it makes pretty much, if you've calibrated your screen and you've calibrated your printer, ink and stock together, you pretty much get out of that what you're actually seeing on screen, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, with those profiles, when you're creating those, you're absolutely right. You need to have a different profile or a specific profile for each stock and ink and printer combination, because putting the same image onto a matte stock versus a gloss stock is going to have a dramatic difference in how that is perceived, how you can see that. But you take those profiles and use them in things like Lightroom and Photoshop from Adobe, and that allows you to soft-proof. So instantly I can suddenly get into the situation where I can see, okay, how is that going to come out? What's the end product going to be like? And if I know on a particular stock it's going to look a bit darker or more contrasty, I see that straight away, so I can adjust my image specifically for that end output. So ahead of the game, you're getting there. You're straight away controlling what's going to be your end result, all the way through that workflow. Of course, the key thing there is you've got to make sure that the screen you're looking at is calibrated. Otherwise, there's no point in doing it. You've got a nice profile, tells you how it's going to look, but it's randomly, who knows how it's actually going to look, because you haven't got that calibration on screen unless you do that process first.
Consistency of colour and contrast all the way through the workflow is key thing. So they're all available as individual products, but you do some packages as well now, isn't it? Some kind of bundles.
We do. We've got 3 core bundles, all coming in nice metal cases. Basically.
I love the case. This is sexy.
Well, you want to make sure you keep these things nicely taken care of, basically. You don't want to get them damaged. But fundamentally, this is the Capture Pro bundle. Comes with the Elite, comes with the Cube, comes with the Spider Checker, and with the Lens Cal. So that's really aimed at the front end through to the screen. We also do a Studio bundle, the Spider Studio, which includes the Spider print in there as part of the bundle. So therefore, you've got, as the name would suggest, an entire studio covered within that bundle. And then most recently, we've launched our Spider HD bundle, aimed at photographers who are moving into videography, or for that matter, broadcasters, videographers, basically, people who are in the video world. So same quality capabilities that you've got in managing stills can now be taken into video as well. So if I'm producing, you know, for commercial photographers, if you're producing a corporate video or maybe a wedding video, etc., that sort of thing can be controlled as well. So you've not got really nicely color managed and controlled images on stills and prints and on the website. Suddenly, as soon as you look at the video, it looks as though it's an entirely different shoot that's been going on. So we're giving that control to you across the whole range now. So
And the hybrid photographer, it's not the feature, it's now, isn't it, really?
Absolutely.
Whether you're studio-based, or pro-based, amateur-based and things, we're all playing around with video in some way. So it's good to see that you're kind of getting involved, actually helping us with that colour consistency throughout.
Okay.
Richard, thanks so much for your time. Remember, it's Datacolor. There are a range of products there for calibration, for your camera, for print, and of course for your monitors.
Cool.
See you next time.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.